UCLA.
Before we talk about the head coaching real quick, I just want to talk. Yep. You mentioned Tyus Edney in '95. During that NCAA tournament, he had an iconic play that bailed you out of a game you were losing to Mizzou, and he went the full length of the court, coast to coast, in 4.8 seconds and nailed the winner. And I went back and I watched that video the other day, and I could see you come running out on the court with the rest of the team celebrating. And was there a bit of shock on your face there? Do you remember like what?
Well, there were a couple things. I had actually injured my knee. I had an ACL injury playing some pickup basketball that prior summer. And so initially I, ran out and then realized, I was still in the middle of rehabilitating that knee. And that's why I started hopping 4 or 5 or 6 hops, because I could feel the knee was about to give out, and actually kind of tweaked it some.
Oh man.
And so to instinctively protect it, I just hopped on the stronger leg. And then, we were so relieved to, advance, because the story ends, the dream ends if Tyus doesn't make that shot. And it changed the rest of our lives. We were going to be fired on Monday of that week if we had lost that game.
Oh, man.
And, later the athletic director and the president, shared that story. So we would have all been out of work and, needing to get the resumes together. And then that affects everything moving forward, because really interesting. So I always said, if I had a child, the first child would be named Tyus, whether it was a boy or a girl, because he definitely is,
oh man, that's unreal.
A player that changed our lives. Again, we talk about the destiny and fate, playing a hand. So that led to him being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And Bob Myers was a walk-on. He's now the general manager of the Golden State Warriors, and has provided great leadership for the Warriors, a couple NBA championships now under his belt. But he was a walk-on, and he's the one that actually grabbed Tyus. And so he ended up being on the cover of Sports Illustrated as well. And later, he was at the White House and on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and went to Disneyland, as the champions do. And so kind of a remarkable story as well. That's for another podcast, but Bob Myers, kind of a Forrest Gump story in terms of, what a success he's been, and using the experience as a student athlete and maximizing that experience in terms of setting up for himself, for life after UCLA.
And in the post-game interview, Coach Herrick was asked, why did you think he could get coast to coast that quickly? And he made some response of, well, Jerry West, when he was with the Lakers, did it in 3. I had no doubt he could do it in 4.8.
Yeah. And I think Jerry West, though, might have been a long jumper, to beat someone. He did push it up the floor, but I don't think he got a layup, but I could be wrong. Jerry West hit so many game-winning shots. Maybe he had one that was a drive and then another that was almost from half court, if I'm not mistaken. He was clutch. And the interesting thing is, we did a drill every day, not every day, but let's say 2 times a week. It was a full court drill. And that's one of the aspects also I think Coach Herrick alluded to was, being guarded in the full court and putting, 5 seconds on the clock, and you had to go coast to coast and score it. And Tyus was the only one that could do that on a regular basis. No one else in the team could get from one end of the floor to the other and score. And so we had seen it all year long in this full court drill that we put in that year. Interestingly, again, back to destiny or fate and how things have to line up when you win a championship. And you look at, championship runs, so often there's a buzzer shot along the way in the NCAA tournament that I think leads to a certain kind of feel of invincibility that is a catalyst for cutting down the nets. Christian Laettner against Kentucky had one of those shots. We know about Tyus. There's been others. And, Chris Jenkins for Villanova more recently against North Carolina, hits that buzzer shot. So usually in the run of 6 games to cut down the nets, there's been a game where you come back, or you get a break, a bounce of the ball, an official's call, something that goes your way, an unexpected contributor off the bench, because you have to be good for 6 consecutive games, and you have to be fortunate not have an injury. We were fortunate. We didn't have one injury all season until Tyus's injury in the semifinals against Oklahoma State, but we had a player, Cameron Dollar, who stepped in and was ideally suited to lead us against Arkansas's full court press, because Cameron could slice through defenses like a hot knife through butter, and then make great judgments in terms of when to lob the ball, when to keep it himself, when to bring it back out and get us into our sets. And as a sophomore, Cameron showed exceptional poise and composure. And if we don't have Cameron, I don't know if we beat Arkansas that night. And I think 75% of our shots were dunks or layups because Arkansas extended defensively to 40 minutes of hell. But we had a team that could pass, catch, shoot the ball, play at high speeds, finish at the rim. And that allowed us to win that game comfortably. The more challenging game, interestingly, wasn't against the defending national champion Arkansas Razorbacks. It was against Eddie Sutton's Oklahoma Sooners with Big Country Reeves and company.
Yeah.
That was more of a grinding, methodical game, and Tyus got hurt. It was a very physical kind of hand-to-hand combat approach. And that's how Eddie Sutton's teams play. They shortened the game. They didn't let you get out in transition. One of the most memorable games in that NCAA tournament was against UConn in the Elite Eight, Oakland Coliseum. It was a shootout. They had Ray Allen, Donnie Marshall, Kevin Ollie, Darren Sheffer. It was one of the most impressive games. I remember, watching Ray Allen, and it was clear that he was a future Hall of Fame player. And I think if they were in a different region, we would have met, in the Final Four or the national championship. But it just happened that we were both in the West region and met each other in the Elite Eight. But the 2 best teams that year, in my book, were Jim Calhoun's Huskies and Jim Herrick's UCLA Bruins, the 2 Jims.